everyone doing? My name is Ernesto, and I'm going to be doing my week 2 current event spotlight. Let's get to it. So, for this week, I'm going to be doing my review on a Bloomberg article, which was written by the US edition, if that makes a difference. The coverage is going to be about a UK story, so odds are it might impact a little bit in terms of the details that we get, but nevertheless, I think that it was a very good and insightful article, and I'm sure other media outlets like BBC probably covered it very well or very intently. But the headline reads, Pakistani leader Altaf Hussain acquitted in UK terrorism case. Right under it, you have the self-exiled MQM had controlled Karachi for years from London. We'll get into it in a couple of minutes as to why that is. The self-exiled, he's been exiled from Pakistan for a number of years now, to the point where he even holds a UK citizenship as well. So, food for thought. And let's see. Hussain accused Pakistan's powerful army of neutering the MQM. Once you find out a little bit about him, you might understand why he might have. You might understand the reasoning behind why he did what he did. I, for one, still don't justify it, but some of you might be a little more sympathetic than me, so I'll get to it. Let's see. Further down in the article, in the beginning, we have here Altaf Hussain, a once feared politician who controlled Karachi for decades from his home in North London, was acquitted by a jury, and it's also worth noting that it was a unanimous decision. It was majority and rule for it. After reading this whole article, I really couldn't wrap my head around how he got acquitted, but it's just a testament as to how good his lawyers are, and maybe just even how the case that the government built might not have even been that solid. But that's to each their own. Part of this came they in the government's defense, they played a over-the-phone broadcast that Hussain made on 2016, in which, I'm going to quote from the article, he urging a crowd of hunger strikes in Karachi to ransack media houses and storm the local headquarters of military units. If you take a look at the next paragraph, it even talks about how 2 TV studios right after that were attacked and taken off air. Now, imagine if that was here in the US. That's just insane to think about. That they were able to get the power to not only like ransack them, but also like completely be able to take them off the air. It's just insane. And then even police officers were assaulted and injured. So it's a little bit of a tricky situation, just because, again, reading this and then seeing that he was acquitted for it, it blows my mind, because especially what we're covering this week in class, in terms of what terrorism is specifically, this could very well be labeled as like a terrorist attack. It's nothing too big or no deaths, thankfully, but it doesn't mean that it can't be classified as it. And to be fair, as we've seen in all sorts of parts of the world, South America, for example, where people are not necessarily happy with their government, this is a great way of looking at it and really being able to stop and think, wow, things could have been a lot worse. But a little background on Mr. Hussain here. He's a politician, if you could call it that, and he was the founder of the MQM, which is short for, and I'm sorry if I butcher it, the Muthahida Qawmi Movement. Bit of a tongue twister. Yeah, it's crazy, because the reason he fled from Pakistan, oddly enough, is because he he was a wanted man for a lot of like his rap sheet is very long. It ranges from murders, targeted killings, treason, inciting violence, like he did recently in that phone call, and hate speeches. This again could also be referred to as a hate speech because it was a long broadcast, albeit over the phone, but it was still a very major act of violence because he was able to influence these people quite a lot. So it's just insane to think about. But yeah, I think that this article is a very good. It gives us a good insight and a good highlight as to just what's going on around the country, and around the world. Because I know terrorism, as what we've been covering so far, it has a broad reach. We find that almost anywhere around the world these days, and it's a really sad thing, but it still happens. I think this article really ties well into the whole topic that we talked about this week in terms of what terrorism is. People always say that it only takes one person, and that's so perfect of an example. If we think about this one article, because all this one man did was make a phone call and got all these people rallied up, and they took about like a flock of sheep, just ready to listen to him and ready to take about whatever he was directing people to do. So it's for right now, the MQM might stand as a political party, but in the future it might turn into something else, which we've seen in other parts of the country, like I've mentioned. So I thought this article was very interesting to talk about, and I'll leave the link for the article in the description, and if you'd like to take a read into it, hopefully you'll get a different perspective, or maybe not, or maybe you'll share some of the same opinions that I do. But I really just thought it was a good read, and I thought that it was worth covering on this spotlight.